Our first item is the adoption of the agenda.
I move to adopt the agenda as presented.
Second.
All those in favor? 6-0. Appoint clerk of the board.
I move to appoint Joni Jantz as the clerk of the board and David Decker as the deputy clerk of the board for the 2021-2022.
Now you put your name in. Next, we will appoint a board treasurer.
I move to appoint Dane Nichols as treasurer for the 2021-2022 year.
Second.
All those in favor? 6-0. Do we have any public comment?
No.
Thank you. Next item is the approval of the consent agenda.
I move to approve consent agenda items A through F.
Second.
All those in favor? 6-0. That brings us to the NHS academic recognition item.
Last month, Mr. Smith presented on some suggestions for possible changes from Newton High School regarding academic recognition. Mr. Smith is not here this evening. He is actually home ill. He can jump on Zoom if we need him to provide some comment. I was asked last week to maybe have Mr. Dick, Nathan Dick, who was the person behind getting this established back in, 2013, something like that, or even before that time?
Yeah, I sort of forget. The original is, I think, 2014 and then in 2013, they occurred on 2 different years.
So I was asked to have him come up and just kind of give you a 5 or 10 minute spiel. Maybe give you a little bit more history since most of you weren't on the board that time. Maybe Matt Treaster might have been. He's not here this evening yet, but he'll be here a little later. So Nathan graces to do so. And he also asked me to pass on a couple of the items that he had used at that time in terms of presentation.
Here. Thank you. One, I'm not here, but I do believe in academic recognition, and I do believe in grades. And I think as suggested, at that, we have to kind of step back and go to what was the context at that time for academic recognition. And at that time, we had a valedictorian system that gave a rank of whoever got, the 4.0 or the highest or something like that. All courses equal in weight and meaning, and through a series of processes of parents and students saying, look, I took AP Calc, or I took Calc 2 at Bethel and got a B and wasn't a valedictorian. We started, the discussion, and Kathlena was very much involved, as well as some other AP teachers. Roger Erickson was very much involved, Deb Ham. So we had a lot of discussion. And my role was primarily to make the presentation. I don't have any hair. I might be, I've got a big voice from coaching soccer. So, but I was also gifted services and kind of had a vested interest that students who were taking more advanced courses when regular courses were offered might need some incentive. Okay, so there are two systems, academic recognition and weighted grades came in at 2 different times. It was first, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was first academic recognition. That was the first one. And the primary purpose, and if you look at what was shared with you, if you look at the rationale for that, the original rationale was to get away from the valedictorian system and provide a cum laude system that was broader. would engage more students, would address the issue of students taking advanced placement or college level courses or regular courses, and would also examine the ACT score and then the GPA, which we did not weight as much. So we created that system to address what we felt were inequalities and inequities within the valedictorian program, okay? And if you look at it, if you look at a number of the data and research on it, since I don't have internet here, and since some of my things are internet-based, they're not cooperating with me. So anyways, if you look at the data and the rationale, what we found was we had students who were taking many more AP courses, pushing themselves academically, having higher ACT scores of like 32 to 34, and not being valedictorian. And then having other students who were not taking any of those courses and being valedictorian. So that cum laude system was an attempt to address that. And to also broaden the number of students who got academic recognition, and to also to provide some incentive to get students to push themselves academically. Am I going to take regular English, or am I going to take AP English? Am I going to take regular physics or honors physics? Am I going to risk taking a B in honors physics, or just get away with an A in regular physics? And the philosophy at that time was, we want students to push themselves academically and step up to the next level. I mean, we expect that in athletics. We expect that in professional performance, you know. So we felt that way. So then in the following year, we examined weighted grades. And that attempted to address this whole class rank. And if you look at the data on some of our charts there, and of course, that's the data at that time, we examined students who were class rank 1, no AP class rank 50, a whole bunch of AP courses. So, what's going on here, So it was two things. It was one, to provide some kind of reward through the weighted system to take an advanced course over a regular course, and also incentive. How do we believe as an academic institution that more students should be pushing themselves academically? Okay, and if we believe that, how can we get kids to take the leap? Just talk to them? Hey, wouldn't it be great if you got a B in this honors course instead of an A in this course and destroy your class rank? Or, hey, we'll weight this course, provide a little reward for you to take that leap, take a little academic risk. And thus we came up with the weighted grade system. Now, at that time, we really only focused on regular English and advanced or honors English. Regular math and advanced or honors math. Regular science, okay? Since then, in the absence of any kind of regular oversight from a committee to examine what courses are we weighting, how are we weighting them, how are we monitoring an honors course versus a regular course, in the absence of that kind of ongoing oversight, what do we have? Mud. And thus that leaves us where we are today. How do we make a decision on this? What changes need to be made, and how do we determine those changes? So, any questions, any Q&A, or?
What about dual credit courses? Were those included?
Well, I think that that was always a bit of a discussion, because dual credit courses were kind of in between, you know? Dual credit, and some of you may agree or disagree, but dual credit is not always seen as the same rigor as an advanced placement course, but a step above the regular course. Yeah, that's for somebody young. What? I'm retired, so I don't, you know, really care about it. But yeah, that is something that has to be addressed. Yeah, I think the other thing that has to be addressed is, this is academic recognition. Academic. So what do we do with recognizing, you know, CTE, music, art, kids who excel in these other areas? Do we need to provide additional types of recognition for those areas? You know, and say, hey, yeah, you know, you're really like fabulous in art, let's go further with that, you know, and provide some sort of standardized recognition for those things. Yeah, but that's, yeah, dual credit, yeah, good luck. Yeah.
So one thing that I'm not quite understanding is, so there was a committee formed to decide, kind of look at these things, and no decision has been made since that time?
You might have to ask.
A little more between.
My understanding is that in 2019, when Lisa Moore brought up a proposal to make drastic changes to the weighted grades, and then she withdrew it from consideration, my understanding was that the expectation was that she would go back and involve parents and students to continue discussing it. And I don't think that ever happened. COVID hit, we had a change of leadership, all that. And so my understanding when Caleb formed the group this year and asked if I would chair it, or I asked him if he wanted me to chair it since I'd had the experience with this, was that we were trying to pick up where that had fallen and see if there was anything left to discuss and kind of bring him up to speed on what was happening. And then his thinking really was, we needed to come back and find out what the board was thinking. Where do you see us going? Are there changes that you see us needing to make? Are you happy with the way it's going now? And that's why he decided to present it to you last time.
So the original plan to get parents and students involved has not occurred?
Not as a formal committee, because we met during the school day, but after our committee had met and brainstormed all kinds of possible options, which he showed you guys last time, he took it to the Principals Council, which is a group of students, and he also took it to Site Council, which has parents, community members, teachers, and students on it.
When this started and there were the list of classes that were weighted, was that list approved by the Board of Education? So any additions that have been made, were those additions approved by the board?
I don't
Or
think
just through
so.
the handbook process?
Right, unless they were listed in the handbook and the board approves the handbook.
Right.
Yeah.
When I see the current list of what's weighted, and I, you know, recall back to our discussions and notes and our original intent, we have courses that do not, and people may disagree with me, but from my perspective, courses that do not fit our original intent, which was really to get kids to make the leap from regular science to an honors science, or those types of things, you know, to take that academic risk. And, you know, like I said, with lack of continuous oversight to examine how are we doing this, or do we have any concerns, any new courses, things like that. This is where we're at. Okay. If you have any questions, I live pretty close. You can contact me anytime, all right? Okay.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I don't have a ton of comments about this, other than I do love the fact that the district went this direction back at that time, letting them know about houses. I've been in districts where the house system becomes kind of crazy, and I can share stories off air about some of the craziness that people will go to get a valedictorian or salutatorian grant. So I do think that that the intent of this system is really, really solid. I also do think that as a board, you need to decide what is the goal of the recognition program? You know, is it to recognize only academics, or is it to recognize academics and also well-rounded students that we produce here that have a well-rounded academic background? And that's some direction if you wanted to consider that. Which direction you wanted to go, give that direction to the high school. The idea of forming a committee, I really like, an oversight committee that reports, you know, either through changes made in the handbook that reflect what the school thinks is the best direction, or even have a board member involved in that specific, to help provide just a feedback.
I really think that's an important question that you posed to us, is what is our ultimate goal, to reward high achieving students based on academics only, or to reward high achieving, well-rounded students? And I personally think it's the latter, that we want to reward people that are well-rounded and pursue the things that they're also interested in. I think a lot of people complain that kind of the educational system pushes academics and college, and maybe that's not for everybody. And I think a change toward academic recognition structure, you know, could give kids some freedom a little bit to pursue what they're interested in without risking, you know, the courts, I guess. Yeah, at graduation time. So me personally, I would be more interested in a recognition program that rewards well-roundedness. I don't know exactly what that looks like. That's what I would be more interested in.
Do we provide class rank to students? We don't do class rank with
I would
the
assume on
system?
transcripts, there's probably class rank there.
The students can even look it up on Infinite Campus.
Yeah.
Do they have a
You kind of have to do that for college admissions. You usually have that.
Well, yeah, because I had a conversation with a student that's going to be a senior, and they were looking at colleges, and they were asking about class rank. But my understanding was that the student didn't know, because previous administration said we don't track that.
So
I don't think
it's-
it's in- yeah,
It's right on the
yeah.
transcript. It'll be on the
Okay,
transcript.
well, it came to an issue between that and weighted grades for financial assistance. So the weighted grades help them get more financial assistance than a non-weighted grade, and at the school that she was looking at, so.
And that's another important point, is I know that Mr. Smith had said it doesn't matter for a lot of schools, but it does matter for some.
Right.
And if you're the one that it does matter, you know, it's a positive thing, so. An important point to make. And like, as I said, Mr. Teresa wasn't here yet. If we need Mr. Smith to jump on, he can jump on virtually. He's actually on Bill this evening, and he'd be glad to answer any questions. So I've just got him on standby. He's going to shoot me, or I'll shoot him a text if we need to answer any questions you guys might have.
I have a couple of questions, and I'm not sure who they would be directed to. Maybe Kathleen, since you've got the history, not to put you on the spot.
I'll try.
You can pass if you don't want to answer. When and why did we move away from the weighted grades being solely the main core subjects that every student's going to take?
My understanding is that the first, from like Nate said about the original list that was all math, science, English, history, the original addition of those extra classes, Roger Erickson added, I think, the engineering courses. And Caleb probably knows the exact time frame because he researched all the transcript changes and all that. And then I think debate, Spanish, and computer apps were added maybe more recently than that. Spanish would be the only one that I understand has a general version of Spanish, general and honors version. There aren't general honors versions of the engineering classes. I don't know about computer apps, but that's moving to Chisholm next year anyway. So that's their problem. We'll let them figure that one out. And I don't know about debate. Or general
Yeah,
honors
I'm not,
debate.
I don't know when debate was added, but I know that the original intent was to differentiate between a regular option and a more advanced option. And I think in debate, there's like a novice debate, and then there's like,
Oh, advanced. or
there's
something.
a more advanced debate, you know? And I think that is one that's, so, yeah, looked back and couldn't figure out, exactly how some of these things were added, but they were certainly not a part of our original discussion.
So that would lead me to the question, which maybe, for Mr. Smith, maybe not, what's the process for adding new classes to the list?
My understanding is that's been a principal decision, and when they put it on the handbook for board approval. It wasn't discussed by the original committee, it wasn't discussed by department chairs, as far as I know, not the whole department chairs. Maybe the individual department chair discussed it or brought it as a proposal. And that's, I think, part of the oversight Nate was talking about. We need a system so that it's not, who's the squeaky wheel? If you're a really, really squeaky wheel and you get all your classes made honors and weighted classes, how is that fair for the kids in classes who don't have such a squeaky wheel teacher or department chair speaking up for them? So if we had an oversight committee whose job it was to make those determinations, including dual enrollment, like Luke brought up, the dual enrollment classes, which ones do qualify, which ones don't. If we had a group of people who would examine that information, that way there'd be a process. And we kind of brainstormed that with our committee this year, is what would be a process people could follow to request a class being considered to be added to that list.
I went back and watched the video from the 2019 meeting where this was discussed, and the previous board member, Toby Tyner, asked a question, which I think is a really good question. Is anyone being hurt by weighted grades currently being part of our system? And no one could answer him at that time. So I think it is something to consider, not being mindful before any changes are made. If any changes are made, what's the motivation behind that? If we do make changes, we want to be very careful about those. I think Mr. Hickey made a great point with your word choice that it was muddy. I agree, and Fred and I have discussed this, that it looks like there hasn't been appropriate oversight in the past, no clear direction when things are added, and so that is a concern of mine that I would like to see that tightened up, cleaned up a little bit, but that would also rely on the board direction of what we want it to be and what is our ultimate goal. And I see both sides of that, looking at it as strictly an academic recognition piece or well-rounded students in other areas. I think it's safe to say we all want well-rounded students, regardless of the path that they take after high school. Looking at different emails that we received from staff, students going back a couple of years, and listening to that as well, it's been brought up that the original classes are classes that every student would take. And that does offer more of a level starting point for everyone. If it were to stay in the 4 main core subjects, I think it gets muddy when we take it beyond that point, because then what do you add in? What do you not? And that does not mean that our CTE courses or fine arts or anything are not important by any means, but different does not mean better or worse. And I think we kind of need to keep that in mind as we think about this process and any changes that might come forward. Do any of you have thoughts, ideas?
I agree with, I feel like if the original intent was to recognize advanced courses in the core curriculum, and that additions were made to that without any oversight, and I think we probably need to get back to that original intent, just working with the core curriculum, and then I think obviously at this point an oversight committee needs to be made, and then if there are some individual classes that need to be added, I think that needs to be a process, that needs to be, there needs to be a conversation there. What's worthy of being added in, what's not. And obviously, yeah, we all want the well-rounded students, but I'm curious what that looks like, because, some kids are not gonna take art, some kids are not gonna take, debate, or, but if they take advanced science, advanced English, advanced, mathematics, I think they deserve some recognition for that. And this is an avenue to make that happen, to incentivize taking the more rigorous courses within the core curriculum and recognizing them for that success. So those are my main thoughts. I mean, the only way that we got here is, I guess, the muddy waters of additional courses being brought in. But the original intent, to incentivize rigorous courses and to recognize academic achievement more than just your GPA only, I think that's fitting for what we want to do, what we want to encourage in our students.
I have a question just to clarify. When we say incentivize kids to take the more rigorous courses, do we mean by making those courses weighted or by making the recognition program have qualifiers of you? Right now, we can take 6 AP or honors courses for SUMA and 5 for Magna. Is that what you guys are meaning? The count, or do you mean the weighted?
In my head, I'm meaning more weighted, because without weighted, it's a disincentive to take those courses.
So we're talking more along the lines of Caleb's proposal, where there's still some classes are still weighted, but we get rid of the how many classes of each type you have to take to even qualify.
Yeah, probably so.
Is that what you guys are saying? You're saying they should still be incentivized?
Yeah.
I think
As
it
far
would-
as the count of honors and AP classes, I don't know if that is super important. In my mind, I think kids are already going to be.
It's two different kind of
just
issues.
they're all
really.
weighted. They're all weighted.
Yeah, okay. Because that's where I'm getting confused a little bit, is are we talking about how many courses of
Yeah.
each type you can take, or just incentivizing kids to challenge themselves by still weighting the more difficult courses, which I think I'm okay with, but I just want to make sure I'm clear in my head what you guys are intending to say. Nathan wanted to say something?
So while the two systems cooperate with each other, in essence,
Uh-huh.
they address two different things. The weighted grades was really supposed to look at this whole class rank thing. Kids who were, let's say, getting B's and C's in advanced placement courses because they took those instead of a regular course and dropping their class rank. And then the cum laude system has within it also to broaden, a selection from science, a selection from math, a selection, and was that academic recognition piece. So while the two work together, their original intent, and correct me if I'm wrong, but was to address two kind of different things. But yeah, we talk about them kind of harmoniously, but yeah, they work differently.
Because if I'm remembering correctly, Caleb's proposal was more along the lines of get rid of the how many classes of each you need to take in order to qualify for anything, but just change the GPA numbers.
Raise the GPA.
Yeah, so then a kid who doesn't take any honors classes still could technically qualify for some type of academic recognition. Would have to do really well, which I think is the point.
And that's when you look at, on slide 9 of the academic recognition from Mr. Dick there, where that GPA was a 3.5 all the way across the board there.
Yeah.
For all levels of that recognition. And so if you remember, one of the stories was told about the student that said, well, I was not going to take that class because I knew I'd probably get a B because I'm not good in that subject area. But since it was a weighted class, I can still get the B, and because of that weight, it wouldn't affect that status. So kids are like anyone else. Most of them know how to do math. And if not, their teachers will tell them, or their counselors will, or their parents will.
Yeah.
And so that's the one thing. Whatever you say is a rule, they'll rise to. We just got to make sure that we're giving them rules that are fair.
Yeah.
And that I think if you make changes, your grandfather changes in, because Matt's son is a junior. He's been playing by knee for 3 years. To remove the rules of that game, I think personally, I just don't think I would be a little bit frustrated by that.
Yeah,
So.
definitely anything needs to be grandfathered in. I'm less hung up on what's weighted and what's not weighted. I understand that more difficult classes should come with some kind of incentive to take them, but I don't agree with the number of classes you need to take for each category. I think that really limits it.
I guess I see this more as an academic recognition thing, and so that's what I'd like to see as focused. That was my understanding when this came to us years and years ago. I think that the pre-AP, AP thing is intriguing. I think it's a way to give us some rigor at a greater number of classes maybe, and realize you're going to be the bean counter, that's going to take money. But I think it's important. I think we ought to be explored and see if we can pull it off. Again, like you said, I think we've got to put this in over time and not hinder anybody that's already participated by the rules we've set out. And then as far as the well-rounded, we do that with National Honor Society. Those kids, they have to not only have high academics, they got to show leadership, community service. That's an opportunity, I think. We recognize those kids. They aren't necessarily the top of the class always. They're usually good, but not always the best. So I think we have ways to recognize different groups of kids. So anyway, that's kind of my 2 cents.
I'll piggyback off of that, and Matt just said, I think our administration right now does a fabulous job of recognizing each department sees needs. Just our department, I think they really put a focus on all those different departments, so I don't think that necessarily this is a spot for it. I think they've done a great job recently in focusing on these, and this kind of needs to be active. And not all kids actually care about it, you know, so the ones that do, I think we should really encourage it.
One thing, when you do consider the difference between honors and AP, you know, and I know this is the bean countering me a little bit, but if we have an AP course at that particular level, for example, we offer AP biology. I don't understand why we would offer an honors biology and an AP biology. Then you've got 3 tracks of biology, and from a scheduling perspective, that's just more problematic, even in a school our size. So that's when you start looking at some of those things. You know, if they're weighted the same, maybe that's something. It wouldn't matter.
I think that's a good idea.
You know,
I didn't realize we had 3 tracks on something.
and not all of them do, though. Like, for example, in chemistry, there's not an AP chemistry, but there is an honors chemistry, one of an honors chemistry too. That's where you start. Then you would want to keep that, perhaps, unless you wanted to make that switch to AP. Because the one thing I think, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, how do you validate whether or not an honors class really warrants the honors designation? You know what I mean? I mean, how do you really do that with legitimacy compared to like the AP?
It's easier when the same teacher teaches both the honor and the general. So I teach honors junior 3 and general junior 3 some years, depending on if I have room in my schedule. It's much easier to distinguish. If it's 2 different teachers, it's harder to just make sure you know exactly what makes a class honor. But I can easily point to the different assignments that my students do, the summer assignments that the honor students have to do. They do 2 research papers versus 1. I mean, those kind of things are easier for one teacher. But yeah, that's part of the trouble too.
And I think if you were to, okay, so for instance, we have honors freshman, honors sophomore, you know, on up to AP English, right? So some schools do pre-AP freshmen, pre-AP sophomores, and they have to have a kind of an approved syllabus, you know? So, you know, I think there has to be, what's the difference between honors or regular? There has to be some, again, oversight of the syllabus. Is it greater critical thinking? Is it more complex text? You know, what makes it honors and not regular? Yeah.
So we're saying that we have honors instead of a pre-AP in some of our courses because you have to be trained for pre-AP. So I guess sometimes I have a hard time distinguishing between general and honors. Honors seems like it should be more than general, but then if you have an AP, so what's, you know, that's kind of confusing, I think.
Well, in the English department, the honors seniors has fallen away because of AP and because of dual enrollment. We really never offer honors 4 anymore. We always offer it, but we have 3 kids signed up and we can't justify that. So it has worked that way, like Fred was describing, where we basically, they choose the general track or dual enrollment or AP. Those are their only choices in English. It's different in other subjects, but that's the way it works for us.
Part, if I may speak, part of the original intent too was, should Newton have more AP courses? A school the size of Newton, should Newton High School be more academically focused with more AP courses? You know, when we compare to the Derby or to North High or some of these other schools, you know, they're bigger, but should we be getting our kids to that level? Not all kids, but do we have a population of students who should be there? So part of the original picture too was to create a system to enlarge our advanced placement offerings.
Do we have any data on that as far as how big of a population of our students would, I mean, how would we determine that?
I don't know if we have current data, but at that time, I called lots of schools, checked their websites, visited with counselors to gather information about what other sort of Arc Valley type schools had AP courses.
But what about our students? Do we have a large group of students?
You mean how many of them are participating in the AP program? We could find that out easily.
Many colleges will give credit for the AP classes, and
Well, I just, you know, and having a student at the high school, the goal is to take the AP classes, or the honors if there's not an AP. That's my student, but, you know, not every student's like that, but, you know, there are kids that want to take those AP classes. And I was just curious, you know, what that number was.
I would be interested in exploring the path of more AP classes and what would that look like, what would that entail? As of tonight, I personally don't feel comfortable making a change with this. I think there's too many things that are unclear at this time as far as, and Angela, you're right, it's two different things that we're talking about, even though they're intertwined a bit. But if we're looking at the honors classes that were presented to us currently being weighted, I feel like there needs to be a group that looks at that and determines if all of those courses actually do need to be on that list or not. From that starting point, then we can look at other options we may have, potential paths for more AP courses instead. I don't know that tonight is the night where we have all that information. I don't feel comfortable making a choice. If we do make a choice, I absolutely would want it grandfathered in, because a number of these students who do seek out the AP classes and that's their path, they plan that before they get to high school. They've got their high school plan, they're ready to go. I do not want to pull the rug out from any student that would take them off of their plan and their goal. I also want to make sure, even though a number of students will not take these AP courses, and that is okay, I want to make sure that we're always offering plenty of opportunity to challenge our kids. We know that if you set a high bar, kids will reach it. Maybe not every kid, because they have different goals, and that's perfectly fine, but I never want to hold back any of our students from going as far as they possibly can in our district. I want our district to be a place where they know they can come and have amazing CTE opportunities, which we're recognized for. But I also want parents and students to know Newton offers incredibly challenging and worthwhile courses on the academic side. We don't have to choose one or the other. We can have both. But I don't know that at this time, and I hate to kick the can down the road, I don't know that we have enough information. I think maybe we're on the path for some more definitive goals to send back with this group, and maybe in a few months look at that. Do you feel like there's information that you've not gotten from the board or guidance or?
Well, no, I mean, what I would do, I like the recommendation of coming up with some sort of oversight group that does kind of outline some of this. And I really, you know, you guys have nothing else to do since this is such a high-paid gig. It wouldn't be a bad idea to have a board member, frankly, on that group, because that's a pretty important deal. I mean, we're recognizing kids at graduation time. To me, that's a pretty important thing but it would be nice to have that direct tie.
I think it would be unanimous consent that Mallory will do that.
I was actually
Is that-
thinking.
Is that what we do with that?
No, I was actually thinking someone with high school students or, graduates would be a good choice for that. I'm not there yet.
I'll volunteer myself to be on that.
I do think we have some more work to do.
Yes, I would agree.
I don't feel comfortable.
Luke is volunteer, by the way. so.
Yes, everyone.
A question was just posed, what specific information do you want them to be providing for you? Do you want them to provide guidance on, what is the difference between honors or how a course is accepted for the weighted? Do you want them to provide information, do we need to continue using ACT, or is that an assessment we need to maybe remove? What do you specifically want this group to bring to you, and do you have like a time frame in which you would like to have that done?
So I think one of the things is the guardrails on what gets in as an honors course. I think we need to be a little more consistent and kind of go back to our roots a little bit.
I think there's probably less information about what the guardrails were and more a proposal about what they should be.
That's right.
Because it seems like it was just principal choice and squeaky wheel kind of thing.
Well, and it kind of feels like maybe the whole process didn't get completed for one reason or another, so.
And then Fred, I don't know if this is for them or really a bean counter question, the AP, possibility.
And I think it would be a good idea for us to set a goal of either at least hearing another recommendation or revisiting this topic, because it has been kicked down the can a lot. And I think one thing Caleb said is we just want a decision to be made, and that kind of made me nervous. Like, you want us to make a decision in 2 weeks? I don't think so, because this is like a brand new topic for a lot of you. But I think we need to put some kind of deadline on, like we did with Summit. Like, we need to have a plan here when we're going to revisit this. December, January kind of seems okay to me.
I would go for.
January. I mean, maybe not January, because we have possibly new board members making a decision that they'll want to kick down the can. So December or November would be okay with me. I don't know if that's enough time, but.
I would like to see November, December-ish. I know kids are going to be choosing classes again. I do not think that June and July is a good time to start doing this, so I definitely would like it. Get school started, get those first couple of months under our belts, but I
Well,
would say
and
by
then-
December.
The middle schoolers, I think, pick their classes, what, January?
January, February,
Yeah, pretty early,
Yeah.
so.
So just to summarize, because Mr. Smith is listening online, so I'm trying to make sure that he understands. We're going to get a committee going to provide some guidance for what can be a course, what should be accepted as a course for weighted or non-weighted, what that course list should potentially be specifically, and also look at any requirements for adjusting numbers of courses. Are you wanting to keep it like pretty open from whatever recommendations that they want to bring to you? Or do you want to keep a certain level of courses for each one of the?
I honestly like the recommendation that was already proposed, just getting rid of the number of
Oh,
course kind of
as
thing.
far as the
The AP for
models.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm not as, I guess I'm more open-minded about that. I'm not.
And the
So just get the committee going to provide guardrails to provide
I
oversight.
think it's, maybe I'm speaking, but I think the ACT, I don't think that doesn't bother us to get rid of that. I understand the idea, but I think it's covered with other things.
Okay.
My one question would be, this committee, who do you have in mind that you want this to?
Well, we've already got a board member. Then we would have representation from the high school. And I would let the principal kind of determine maybe with his building leadership team what that should be. And then I think there should be a central office representative on that as well, for sure.
Are we?
And then I like what Caleb got the students involved with that leadership team, and then also site council, they need to have some input with that as well.
Well, we definitely need to know how the students feel about it. So,
Are we, because I know on the list that we have right now, we have multiple classes on the weighted grade chart that are not part of the 4 core subjects.
But they're, okay, yes, yeah.
So are we wanting to kind of go back to the original proposal of the 4 main subjects or courses, or are we wanting to keep it rather broad like it is now? Do you have?
I don't think that's a decision necessarily that like I feel comfortable making on the spot, but I do think whoever does discuss that, if there should be representation from teachers on both sides, like core and non-core. It's probably gonna be a big battle.
It will be a big battle because it's very personal for
Yeah,
some.
definitely.
But I think we do need to give some sort of goal of what we're wanting that to look like.
Well, and I think that comment about it being for academic recognition and not necessarily anything outside of the core academic, is that what I heard, that your goal with this is mainly recognition for those that are excelling in those core academic areas? I'm getting yes and then no, so this is what'll be the fun part about that, it'll be the same way when they get back to talk. So that's where I think that we need to provide that direction for them. Because then, when it comes to Mr. Smith or Ms. Bergman in those meetings saying, well, we think it should be this, we can go back to that fact that the Board of Education has directed us, they want this to be an academic recognition.
I think even if it is an academic recognition though, who am I to say that an engineering class isn't rigorous and deserves to be weighted or to count towards this? Like, that seems pretty difficult to me, but I'm not an educator that knows standards, things like that, so.
And that's
why I
one-
don't feel like I'm really qualified to answer that kind of question right now.
But that's the question I know that will be asked, and so they would want to know what your intent was as it relates to that. So do you, I guess, does that go back into them to determining, what recommendations for courses that would go on that list and why? I mean, that kind of stuff, because I know in that engineering class, I don't know the curriculum of that engineering course, but I would venture to guess there's a ton of applied physics in there that would make it a pretty difficult class from an academic rigor perspective.
Well, then you run down a different path of determining if the class is hard, it's weighted. Every class is hard to a certain student.
Some, but, and some.
German would be very difficult for me, but it's not for other students, And then we run into things like, we have an honors versus general version of band, because we have auditions and we have a wind ensemble and a concert band. Is wind ensemble now a weighted class? I mean, we can go down, that's where it gets muddy, as we've said, when you take it away from the 4 core subjects that every student's required to take. But why would a wind ensemble course be weighted, but, German 1 is not? Because there isn't, that starts where it gets the muddy feature, when we don't have a system of, it's based on the 4 core classes, plus it's based on those who have both an honors or a general option. And the students chose the honors option. So the conversation you're describing is what we've been having for the last 6 months. We've already had those fights.
The last 8 years.
8 years, that's correct.
After January.
So, when you're talking about the core, I'll just throw in one more thing, it did come up about anatomy and physiology. And we weighted that at that time, because you had, was it human biology? Is there
Human
another-
body systems.
Human body systems was viewed as the regular option, and anatomy and physiology was, the more, but, the thing is, at that time, with Didier as the teacher, anatomy and physiology was like, going
Hardest class.
to, it was brutal. That's all I'm gonna say. Now, Fred Schmidt was a 5th grader of mine, so I think that he is trying to make it very rigorous as well. I'm sure he is, But that's where it comes back to, how do you look at their syllabus, expectations, what is the level of critical thinking, what are the prerequisite skills, stuff like that, as opposed, for establishing whether it's weighted or not.
We could muddle with it enough to bring back some stuff. I mean, I think, Mr. Smith, do you agree, he'll say yes or no on the text here. So, I normally don't text during board meetings, but I just want to make sure, because I know he's busy. And now he probably is.
Maybe he's turned those off for now.
I think there's enough direction for them to get started. You don't make any decisions this year based upon that, and then they can, at least they know that there'll be some sort of a process through which it goes through, some sort of a filter rather than just a decision of one individual or one small group. But it might be something different every year based upon something new that might pop up too. Those have to bring it up. That's okay. I hate changing things too often because you hate to have your, one class being measured this way, the other class being measured this way. Then you make a third change, 3 years, then another class being measured that way. That's when it gets difficult for counselors and stuff. And also for sometimes parents, if you've got a kid that's a freshman and a senior, and they're totally different rules. So, as much stability as we can bring to that, I think would be really positive.
I think from a parent standpoint, having multiple kids in the school, Luke and I would probably like some consistency because we're going to be bringing them in for a lot of years.
2 years, 3 years.
Correct.
Caleb said he's pretty good. He's good.
Okay.
He's good.
Okay. I don't want to micromanage them, but I also don't want to have them or ask them to meet again as a group without some sort of direction, because they've clearly done that in the past.
And if we have more questions, I'll let you folks know. Thank you so much, Mr. Dick.
Thank you. Our next item is to approve the Newton High School 2021-22 handbook.
I had a question about this, and it's probably for Caleb, who's maybe still listening, but the beginning of school year last year, we had a discussion, I believe, about this dress code, and we decided to stay with the current dress code. I was wondering if that was ever taken back to the school at all to kind of rework anything or think about it again, or do I kind of...
I cannot answer to that. I can find out from Caleb. Caleb, did you hear that?
Maybe we can find out.
Just put in the earbud.
So I do think it had some good intentions in that revised dress code that we could work into the handbook.
I will get that answer forward to you.
Would you like us to continue on this item or wait and see if we have a response for Mr.
I mean,
Oh,
the
it's not going
response
to
is
change.
gonna-
Yeah, it won't change.
It won't
this.
change anything, I'm just wondering.
Okay.
We're going to make a motion.
Yep.
All right, I move to approve the 2021-22 Newton High School Student Handbook as presented.
Second?
All those in favor? Passes 7-0. Okay, for new business, we have a lot of business to tend to. So the easiest thing when it comes to these items is to just run it around the table, go in order, one person make the motion, the next second, and just keep going around until we're finished. Hopefully that will speed some things up. So, new business, item A.
I move to adopt resolution 2022-07-1, designating eligible financial institutions as depositories.
Second.
All those in favor? 7-0.
I move to adopt resolution 2022-07-02 of Authority of Petty Cash Funds, resolution 2022-07-03 authorizing petty cash funds for Newton High School, and resolution 2022-07-4 authorizing petty cash funds for district office.
Second.
All those in favor? 7-0.
Move to adopt resolution 2022-07-5, waiver of fixed assets accounting and general accepted accounting principles for 2021-22.
Second.
All those in favor? 7-0.
I move to adopt resolution 2022-07-6, establishing Board of Education meeting dates, times, and location as presented.
Second. All those in favor? 7-0.
I move to adopt resolution 2022-07-7 to establish home rule by Board of Education.
Second.
All those in favor? 7-0.
I move to adopt resolution 2022-07-8 for rescinding policy statements found in board minutes.
Second, all those in favor? 7-0. I move to adopt resolution 2022-07-8 for rescinding, oh, is that the one you just did? Yep. Click on the next one. I move to adopt resolution 2022-07-9 for the USD 373 gift fund.
Second.
What's that order?
Out of order.
We'll take
Did I mess it up?
Sorry, what did I say?
Andy.
That's okay, man.
All those in favor?
Everybody pick it up real quick on the
7-0. Well, that's okay, I read the wrong one, so.
So am I doing H then?
You're on H.
Okay. I move to adopt resolution 2022-07-10 of authority for district account.
Second.
All those in favor? 7-0.
I move to adopt resolution 2022-07-11 for Fastenal signatures.
Second.
Facsimile. Signatures. You second.
Oh, you're so quiet, I didn't hear you. All those in favor? 7-0.
Move to adopt resolution 2022-07-12 for activity funds. Second.
All those in favor? 7-0.
I move to adopt resolution 2022-07-13 of authority for new high school account.
Second. All those in favor? 7-0.
We'll talk about this one.
Yeah, we gotta talk
We have
about
to talk
these.
about this one.
Yep.
So item L is for the KASD Governmental Relations Network. That includes voting rights for the delegate assembly. Matt Treaster was the person appointed to that last year. Do you want to, are you okay with keeping that?
Yeah, last year, I didn't get to go to anything. I was actually in a gymnasium watching a wrestling match doing a Zoom call. There was no, it was a virtual thing, so.
Does anybody else really want to steal that away from him?
I just like to experience it one time. I heard it's really cool.
That means you gotta go.
I know. We appreciate it.
Yeah. I move to appoint Matt Treaster to serve as the board's representative to the KASB Governmental Relations Network for the 2021-22 year, including voting rights for delegate assembly.
Second.
All those in favor? 7-0. Our next item also includes an appointment, and if I remember correctly, Andy, you are currently holding that position? Yes, would you like to continue that?
You do that. Do I appoint myself?
I'll skip, we'll skip over.
I second.
No, you're gonna sit quietly for this one.
You got gavel now, man.
I think it's the first time the crowd's hissed.
I move to appoint Andy Ortiz to serve as the board's representative to the Special Education Cooperative Board for the 2021-22 year. Second. All those in favor? 7-0. Next, we get to approve board member appointments to committees for the 2021-22 year as presented. To make this easy, hopefully, is everyone comfortable with the committee they're currently serving on? Or would anyone like to make any changes?
Maybe it makes sense to keep them the same until January 1st, if possible.
I'm fine keeping them as they are unless anyone would like to not be on a specific committee that they're already assigned to. I think we're good. Yeah, I think we're good, Angela.
We did, right?
I mean, I'm good with that. I just, for one of the committees that I'm on for the vocational advisory board, I don't know when they meet.
Probably have not met. I mean, they have your name,
Okay.
so they just don't meet very often.
Okay. Oh, and I think it says twice a year.
Yeah, okay.
And Mallory, I believe what we did last July was in January, if the board member was not returning, was when we filled that. Otherwise, they stayed with the school year.
Okay. Do you need a motion for us to keep them as they currently are listed? Or what would be
Stop
best
motion,
for
those
you?
right there. As presented.
Yeah, it can just be, I'll just move everyone over to their, staying the same, and I might just say that that's Melissa for the advisory board, Angela for endowment, Matt for PBC, Dana for wellness, Luke for technology, Angela, Luke, and Mallory for the IDB team, and Mallory for Head Start policy. All right? Okay. So the motion can just be as read, as printed.
Okay. I move to approve board member appointments to committees for 2021-22 as presented.
Second.
All those in favor? 7-0. That brings us to board comments. Andy?
I think you guys are being patient and learning a lot fast. It's been a fire hose this last year, boy, but it's been fun, and I'm looking forward to continuing forward and looking forward to this next school year. Oh, if you haven't filled out your form, please fill it out. $10, right?
Or 20. You're talking about, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Wait a minute,
Okay,
okay.
then I want you.
I would just again say thank you to staff that are continuing to work. I know our principals are reporting next week, next Monday.
Yes,
Already
Monday.
a month's getting away from us, so I hope everybody's been able to get a little bit of rest. I'm excited for this new school year.
Can I say one thing?
Maybe, what is it?
We are interviewing for AP positions this week, so we may, since our next board meeting isn't scheduled until August, if the candidate pool and the interviews go well, we may need to call a special meeting to get approval, because it'd be kind of cool if you guys, if we actually have a principal AP approved next Monday when we start. So we may have to do some sort of a virtual meeting if we can get a quorum to where we can run a personnel report. That might be something we try to do this week. So just wanted to throw that out there before y'all took it on.
And my one final comment, I'll take it back from you, that this was your idea, this is not my idea. So I don't want any rumors starting. I'm trying to.
Iron fist.
You